God and Bobby. This wasn't supposed to, start. Thank you so much. That was beautiful. Hi, everyone. Good morning. Wow. I'm super overwhelmed. I just thank you. So many of you came from long distances to be with us today. I appreciate it. Mike and Alina and I would like to thank you all for being here today to honor the wonderful life of Tom. The fact that you're all here really does show that that his life had great meaning and that he impacted all of you in some way. I'd like to thank Pastor Gary for being here for us today and for wearing the kilt and the robe, doing double duty for us as officiator and as well as bagpiper. And a huge thank you to my dear friend Bobby Banger. Thank you so much for sharing those stories. I love you. And it means so much to me that you agreed to share your memories of Tom and the fire service. And I know Tom would be very honored. So thank you. My besties are all over here. Thank you guys. I know it's unusual for a wife to speak at a celebration like this, but I just really feel like I need to, and I'm the only person who can tell our love story because I was there. And so thank you for letting me do so. It's a really special story. I mean, how could it not be when you go through life as Tom and Jeri, right? We were everybody's favorite cartoon after all. Tom Talbott was a tremendously beautiful person inside and out. He was a wonderful firefighter. He dedicated his life to fighting fire and saving lives and property, and he was so proud of that. And he loved every person he ever met. He loved every one of you in this room. And he loved the Lord. And he loved and adored Mike and me most of all. He was an intensely loving father and husband. He was humble and generous and sweet and kind and classy and handsome and charming. And he was absolutely the best person I have ever known. Who among us ever saw Tom Talbott when he was not smiling? His smile and that twinkle in his eye was so sweet and captivating, and people were just drawn to him. I could never get enough of his beautiful smile, and it made me happy countless times a day. His smile was the reason that he knew no strangers and that he made friends with everyone. He made everyone feel like they were the most important person that he ever met. And who didn't love that about Tom? We were together for 14,215 days. And it was an awesome blessing. Tom Talbott changed my life. He completed my life. And he made every single one of my dreams in life come true. So this is our love story, and it's my favorite story I have ever told, and I've said it 1,000 times, and so if you've heard it before, then thank you for indulging me again. I met Tom on July 3rd, 1983 at Brackett Field Airport in Laverne, California. I was 23 years old. It was 1 week before my 24th birthday, and I was invited that day to go for a flight with some friends. We were heading up to Lancaster to have lunch. Tom was also at Brackett Field that day, and he was preparing his airplane to fly up to Santa Barbara to pick up his son Mike, as the two of them would be flying to Missouri for their summer vacation. The two respective airplanes were tied down side by side, and I looked over, and at first he just took my breath away. And I saw that smile. I saw a stunning man in a tank top with big muscles and a gorgeous head of hair, and an airplane. And I thought, oh my God, it's William Shatner. And he saw a little redhead he thought was something special in his eyes, and it was love at first sight. And once we got back into the airplane to leave, I turned to my friends and I said, I don't want to go to Lancaster with you, I want to go to Santa Barbara with him. And at that point we pulled around to the fuel pumps at our airplane, followed by Tom's. And when we exited the airplane so they could fuel up, one guy in my group, whose name was Bruce, walked over to Tom and said, see that redhead over there? She wants to go to Santa Barbara with you. It's kind of embarrassing, but... And Tom looked up at me and he said, oh no, I can't handle young women. And so we got back into the airplane, and then Bruce looked at me and he said, his name is Tom, and if you're interested, you're supposed to leave your phone number on his airplane when we get back. So I thought about it, and you know, we were going to Lancaster and he was going to Santa Barbara, so we got back first and his airplane was not there. So I left the airport that day thinking, doggone it, I'm never going to see Shatner again. And then later that night the phone rang and the voice on the other end said, hi, did you have a nice flight today? And I said, why yes I did, who is this? And he said, this is Tom. Oh, hi Tom, how did you get my number? And he said, Bruce gave it to me. So Bruce fibbed a little bit, and he had good reason to do so because he was always giving my phone number out to these losers, you know, and I told him if he ever gave my phone number out again, I was going to kill him. And then he did one more time. And Bruce is still alive and well. I just talked to him a few weeks ago. And I thanked him again, as I have done every July 3rd for the past 39 years. And he goes, look what I did. So Tom and I talked on the phone for a couple of hours that first evening. And Tom invited me to have pizza with him and Mike. And I declined, but I asked him to call me when they returned from Missouri. But then, while he was in Missouri, he sent me a dozen long-stemmed red roses for my 24th birthday. And I thought, okay, he's a keeper. And when they came back to California, he couldn't wait to call me. And we had our first date. And of course, we went for an airplane flight over his Alta Loma home. And we had lunch at a Mexican food restaurant, and we watched the mid-season All-Star baseball game on TV at my apartment, followed by our first kiss. And we've been inseparable ever since. Tom and I were together for 4 years before we got married. He was caring for his sick father, who was living with him at the time. And he loved his father, and so did I. And I moved in and I helped him take care of his dad while he was working at the fire station. And I was working also, and I was traveling for my job, and it was a little crazy, but you know, he needed help, and I was taking care of a man in his 70s who was sick when I was in my 20s, but you know, I had to. I mean, he was my boyfriend's father, and I was where I was supposed to be. And then there was this big old elephant in the room with the 19 years and 5 months between Tom and I, and all the people who said it wouldn't work. But you know, it worked. No one besides Tom and me knew the depth and the strength of our love. And it was real and true and so intense. And it grew stronger with every passing day all the way through our life until the day he died. Not too long after I met Tom, he sold his airplane and bought a little used ski boat, and that became the beginning of our love for the river. And when his father died in 1986, he left us a little bit of money, and we bought land in Lake Havasu City, Arizona, and built our first house there. And Tom asked me to be his bride on June 6, 1986, in a now defunct Mexican restaurant in Lake Havasu City called Husong's Casa de Miguel, and I know so many guys heard it. Not there anymore. He ordered a bottle of champagne that night, and I thought, that's weird. Who orders champagne in a Mexican restaurant? Little did I know what was about to happen. He did not drop to one knee. He just asked me to marry him from across the table, as if attempting not to attract any spectators. But I didn't care who knew it when I leaped across the table in about 2 seconds with a resounding, yes, 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 I will marry you. And then he reached into his pocket and he gave me a little velvet box, and when I opened it, I found this little teeny tiny diamond inside. But I didn't care about the size of the diamond because I was engaged to the man of my dreams, and that was all I cared about. I tried to put it on my ring finger, but it didn't fit, and when I told him, he said, well, then put it on your pinky. So I did. And then he reached in his other pocket and he pulled out another velvet box and he gave me a beautiful ring. That was Tom's wonderful sense of humor. I mean, you know, even in the most important moment of my dreams, right, he pranks me. Just a little bit. But he smiled that beautiful smile, so delighted that he pulled off the prank, but mostly because I agreed to be his wife. And he loved me like crazy. And that night, I knew, I absolutely knew beyond any shadow of a doubt that I would be with this man for the rest of my life. And I would love him the best that I could, and I would try to make him happy every day of his life. The following spring in 1987, we went to the Arboretum in Arcadia, and we took our own engagement photos with a camera and a remote control. We were doing selfies before selfies were cool. The photo on the front of that program was taken on that day. Just look at that gorgeous man. My favorite picture. This is the dress I wore that day. It's been hanging in my closet for 35 years. And it still fits me. Even though I busted the hook on it. I always wanted to wear it again, and I'm glad I could. Tom and I were married on September 12, 1987, and it was the best day of my life. The theme of our wedding was the Tom and Jeri adventure, and we had a cat and mouse on top of our wedding cake. Our getaway car was an old Mack fire engine, and we rode on the top of the hose bed with our wedding party to the reception. The reception was a carnival, and I mean that in the true sense of the word. We literally had a fortune teller and a clown and a magician who cut my maid of honor Rami in half. And I never could figure out how they did that. Do you know how? She's just not telling me. She's never going to tell me. It was different and fun, and you know, I tell you this because it was all Tom's idea. He had just a great imagination, and he wanted our guests to have more fun than they'd ever had at a wedding before. And he wanted to make it perfect for me. But it was already perfect for me because I married Tom that day. And our best man was this really magnanimous guy named Gary Peterson, who was our best friend. And he and Rami took us to the airport that night, and Gary gave us a honeymoon suite in Las Vegas and carte blanche on his American Express. But Tom had no interest in running up Gary's American Express. He just wanted to go downtown the next day and learn how to play craps on the 25-cent beginner's table. And I wanted to lay in bed and reminisce about my wedding and cry tears of joy. But I ended up learning how to play craps on the day after I got married. It was perfect. Through the years, we built our own house from the dirt up, and we developed our gardens, which we call Talbottville Farms. And it was our playground. I have a hard time with the garden right now. Farmer Tom was a masterful gardener, and I was lucky to be his sidekick out there. We took garden walks together nearly every evening at happy hour for so many years, and it was our greatest delight in life, and I already miss that so much. but I know I will never spend a day in the garden when Tom isn't there with me. In 1999, when I turned 40, Tom gave me a check for $20,000 and he told me to buy another lot in Havasu to build our dream vacation house. And true to form, I spent every penny. And we built our house there in 2000. And we loved it, especially at Thanksgiving, our favorite holiday. But after Tom's hips went bad, we had to give up boating, and we sold our fourth and last boat and the house by 2015. By this time, we had already started fishing, and we gave up the desert in favor of the mountains. When our river days were coming to an end, Tom wanted to teach me how to fish. But sitting for hours with a wet line sounded to me a lot like watching paint dry. But I agreed to go, and as it turned out, fishing was absolutely the best thing I ever did with him. The mountains in the summer and the fall made us closer to each other and closer to God. And I never took one moment in the mountains with Tom for granted. We couldn't get enough of our time there together, and we never grew tired of going fishing together. It was always a blessing and a huge joy in our life. During the last 5 years of Tom's career, he wanted to get out of the city and work on a brush rig. And so he bid over to Station 97, which was then Glendora and now Azusa. And that's the station from which he retired in 1996. I recently went over there to visit the remains of that fire station. And it was a profoundly surreal experience for me because the building was gone when they built the new one. And there were just so many memories that just came flooding back into my head about that fire station. And I felt Tom with me so much that day. And I remembered all the times I would go visit him there in the early 1990s. And I was so proud of him, and I was proud of all those guys, you know, because they were just special, and they made me feel special because I was the captain's girl. And there were so many holidays that he worked, and I went to that station to spend time with him, and I had Thanksgiving and Christmas dinner at that fire station. And the thing I want you to know is how generous Tom was to his crew. You know, he went to work on the holidays so that another guy could go home and be with his family. And it seems so simple, but you know, he probably changed their lives because they got to go home and see their kids on Christmas because of Tom and giving them the day off. And I loved that about him. I never got to say goodbye to old 97s until that day I went there, and it was so bittersweet and significant to me. And the new Station 97 gave us a beautiful flag ceremony last Sunday. And those men put on their dress blues in the heat of July to honor their brother, Captain Talbott. And I know Tom would have been both humbled and so proud and honored. He loved the flag. There's the flag right there that they folded that day. And he loved America, and he loved the fire department. He was a hero, and he earned that honor for his years in the fire service, and I'm so grateful for that day. And it is such a privilege to be able to share with you the video of the flag folding from that day. And if you've never heard it before, it's amazing. You just listen up, and you'll hear about what the flag foldings mean. Tom and I were married 3 months short of 35 wonderful years. Each day a special gift from God that we never took for granted. Living with Tom Talbott and being his wife is unquestionably the absolute greatest joy I have ever had in my life. Our life was so full of true love and friendship, passion, support, sweetness, respect, honor, devotion, fun, excitement, and adventures. It wasn't perfect, you know, we made a lot of mistakes. But we always worked things out along the way, and we always made up, and we always forgave each other. And we trusted each other, and we trusted the Lord to see us through. We always told each other every day how much we loved and appreciated each other. You know, there were only two of us living in our house, but our home was so full of love and peace at all times. Our house was the no-drama zone. Tom was the kindest, truest, and most loving husband that has ever lived on this planet. He called me his little flower of the desert, his little dove, his unsinkable Molly Brown, his sweetie, his little pal, his soulmate, his redhead warrior wife, and his husky-dusky. And I called him my hero, my knight in shining armor, my farmer, my boat driver, my fishing buddy, my fire captain, the love of my life, my rock, and my everything. The last 7 months of Tom's life was very challenging and painful and heartbreaking. His body was failing, and we tried so hard to fix it. And the thing I want you to know is that I tried my best to make him happy and to save his life, and as did all of his doctors and everybody at Eisenhower. I saw his broken, crippled body every day during those months leading up to his surgery. And if I'm being honest, I wasn't sure he could survive 2 major surgeries and the infection as an 82-year-old man with AFib, but I never told him that. I never gave up on him, never. He tried so hard to live, and if he had chosen not to have the surgery, the infection would have killed him and he would have died in pain, but he didn't. And we tried our best to save his life, and because of that, we were able to bring him home, and we were rewarded with his peaceful passing at home with Mike and me and the hospice nurse and Jesus by his side when he took his last breath. It was his time, and God had called him home. Tom Talbott, I miss you so darn much. I will miss you for the rest of my life. You are the world's greatest husband, and I'm the luckiest woman who ever lived to be married to you. I will always keep your memory alive, and I will always honor your life. And I know I made you proud how I lived with you. And the next time I see you, I hope I make you proud how I lived my life after you were gone. The Lord has promised I will see you again, and I will. And I will never stop loving you. Thank you for loving me so unconditionally and completely. Rest in peace, my hero. And don't forget to save me a place.